Hello and welcome to Haunted Montreal's Spooky Story Sessions. I'm your host, Holly Rhiannon, and today I'm going to tell you all about McGill University's Arts Building. McGill University's Arts Building has stood at the heart of the campus since 1843. As the oldest surviving building at the university, it has witnessed nearly 2 centuries of history. Some of the university's darkest chapters unfolded inside its walls, where medical students once conducted experimental autopsies on corpses, many of whom were stolen from local cemeteries. Whether these grim events are connected, it's impossible to say, yet reports of unexplained footsteps and sightings of what appears to be a former anatomy professor have helped earn the building a reputation as being one of McGill's most haunted. McGill University was officially founded in 1821, but its earliest classes took place in a far less impressive setting than we see today. The only available structure at the time was Burnside Place, the former country estate of James McGill himself. What had once been a private residence on the edge of the city was never designed for academic use, and its layout and condition made it poorly suited for a growing institution. The estate sat on 46 acres of land, a quiet, country property where McGill spent summers with his wife, Charlotte. Burnside Place took its name from a small stream that ran through its grounds, burn being a Scottish word for brook or creek. McGill was a wealthy merchant, deeply involved in trade networks that shaped Montreal's economy in the late 18th century. By the time of his death, he was among the city's most affluent figures, with a fortune estimated at around £100,000. A sum that would ultimately help establish the university that bears his name. In 1811, James McGill bequeathed Burnside Place to the Royal Institution for the Advancement of Learning, based in London, England. The estate stretched from what is now Dr. Penfield Avenue to several blocks south of Sherbrooke Street, covering a considerable portion of land for its time. Along with the property, McGill also left £10,000 to the institution on the condition that a university bearing his name would be established within 10 years of his death. If this requirement was not met, both the lands and the funds were to be returned to his heirs. McGill himself had never received a formal university education, having left school at a young age. Despite this, he set into motion the creation of one of the more well-known institutions in this country. When he died suddenly on December 19, 1813, the Royal Institution began the process of fulfilling his wishes. McGill University officially opened in 1821, just under the deadline set out in his will. With limited space for instruction, the Royal Institution commissioned a dedicated college building in 1837. The structure, later known as the McGill College Building and eventually the Arts Building, was designed in 1839 by British architect John Austell in the Classic Revival style. In 1843, Austell's team had completed the central and eastern sections. The central block housed classrooms, a college hall, library, kitchen, the steward's residence, and a chamber for the governor's council. The eastern wing contained a chapel and the vice principal's residence. However, funding ran out before the project could be completed. The western section was never built, nor was the planned 2-story portico with Doric columns intended for the main facade. The unfinished structure quickly became difficult to maintain. The roof leaked, many rooms were cold and poorly lit, and broken windows left parts of the building exposed. Before long, it had clearly fallen into disrepair. To raise the funds needed to continue construction, the Royal Institution sold off valuable land south of Sherbrooke Street. E.A. Collard's book, Oldest McGill, devotes an entire chapter called Early Years in the Arts Building to this difficult period in the university's development. McGill's first faculty was medicine, which originated from the Montreal Medical Institution and was incorporated into the university in 1829. In 1845, the medical classes were relocated to the Arts Building, where they joined the Faculty of Arts, which had begun teaching there in 1843. At the time, Montreal had not yet expanded as far west as the campus. As a result, the only access to the building was through rough, unpaved lanes that became nearly impassable during winter with the heavy snowfall. Students often relied on professors with sleighs to reach the site, particularly during storms. Between the distance, the unfinished structure, and the harsh conditions, dissatisfaction with the facilities was widespread. The Faculty of Medicine in particularly was unhappy with the move, describing the building as a lonely building, far removed from other dwellings, imperfectly heated, and lighted by candles, the light being barely sufficient to render the surrounding darkness visible. Perhaps not surprisingly, the Faculty of Medicine left the Arts Building in 1851. Their timing proved fortunate, as construction of the nearby McTavish Reservoir began the following year. The excavation work required to hollow out the reservoir involved controlled explosions, which sent rock fragments and debris flying across the surrounding area. The Arts Building was repeatedly struck by falling stone, making conditions hazardous and causing further structural damage. As cracks began to appear in the walls, the remaining staff and students were forced to relocate as the repairs were carried out. Restoration took nearly a decade. By 1862, the building had been repaired, the western wing was completed, and the structure finally reflected most of John Austal's original design. Classes gradually returned, and the Arts Building resumed its role at the center of campus life. A final addition, however, came on June 23, 1875, with the installation of the James McGill monument in front of the building. The four-sided stone pedestal is topped with a decorative urn in his memory, and it contains a box holding McGill's remains. McGill had originally been interred at the St. Lawrence Protestant burial ground beside his friend John Porteous. His wife, who was Catholic, was interred elsewhere due to burial restrictions at the time. Over time, the cemetery itself fell into decline as it reached capacity, with deteriorating monuments and increasing vandalism. So, in 1873, the city expropriated the cemetery to make way for a public square, offering descendants the opportunity to move any remains they wished to have interred elsewhere. As the grounds were cleared, McGill University administrators arranged for James McGill's skeleton and monument to be transferred from plot number 16 to its present location in front of the Arts Building. That same year, Burnside Place was also demolished. Over time, the urn atop McGill's monument began to deteriorate from exposure to the elements. By 1944, it had been replaced by a replica installed by the McGill Graduate Society and the Canadian Grenadier Guards. Around the monument, stories began to circulate. Some believe the ghost of McGill still lingers in the area surrounding his final resting place, while others claim he is burning in hell for his role in the transatlantic slave trade. Those stories were later echoed in print as well. On October 23, 2011, the Tribune published an article called Haunted McGill, in which journalist Kyla Mandel wrote, "Once upon a midnight dreary, McGill's campus was quite eerie. The orange leaves rustled and the autumn air was crisp. Shadows danced in the blustery wind. It was Halloween, and the ghosts that lurk McGill were out to play. Where are these phantoms of the night, you ask? They can be found in many places. All it takes is a little faith and courage. The place to start hunting for McGill's ghosts is in front of the Arts Building, where the remains of James McGill were reinterred in 1875. There have been other stories of ghosts haunting the Arts Building itself. After passing the ghost of James McGill, take the steps up into the Arts Building to wander its echoing corridors and the recesses of its basement alcoves. According to Peter McNally, director of the History of Montreal project, in the 1840s the Arts Building housed the Faculty of Medicine and its cadavers. So beware, the ghosts that prowl these quarters may not be as welcoming as the shape of James McGill. Perhaps the only detection of a ghost you'll find is that chill that has just passed through you, or the light that appears only on some nights in the cupola atop the Arts Building." Additionally, students have long claimed to hear phantom footsteps moving through the hallways and the creaking staircases of the Arts Building. Alongside these sounds, there are also reports of a sudden, overpowering stench that can fill classrooms, corridors, and stairwells without warning before disappearing within minutes. Some have described it as the smell of death or rotting flesh mixed with formaldehyde. And on occasion, it has been strong enough to drive students and professors from the building to be sick in nearby washrooms. One anatomy student, familiar with the phenomenon, described it as effluvium, an unpleasant or harmful odor, secretion, or discharge associated with autopsy drippings. There have also been sightings of what appears to be an old anatomy professor. Often seen only out of the corner of the eye, the figure appears and disappears almost immediately. Described as being in Victorian attire, including a cap and a full-length, blood-stained apron. He is said to be seen most often in hallways, classrooms, and especially on the staircases. Witnesses add that he carries a scalpel, which does little to ease the reaction of those who encounter him. One prominent theory links the figure to a Victorian-era academic involved in early anatomical instruction, A man named Dr. D.C. McCallum held the position of prosector to the professor of anatomy, preparing cadavers for dissection in the original Arts Building. In 1847, he wrote, "I had to prepare during the greater part of the session the dissections of the parts which were to be the subject of the professor's lectures the following day. This necessitated my passing several hours, usually from 9 to 12 o'clock at night, in the dismal, foul-smelling dissecting room, my only company being several partially dissected subjects, and numerous rats which kept up a lively racket, coursing over and below the floor and within the walls of the room. Their piercing and vicious shrieks as they fought together, the thumping caused by their bodies coming into forcible contact with the floor and walls, and rattling produced by their rush over loose bones, furnished a variety of sounds that would have been highly creditable to any old-fashioned haunted house." For some students, these accounts have become closely tied to the ghost said to haunt the building, with some believing the apparition is Dr. McCallum himself, who later became a full professor of anatomy. Over the years, however, a separate and more sensational legend has circulated on campus, though its accuracy is highly disputed. According to the story, Dr. McCallum was once lecturing in the dissecting room of the original Arts Building when he suddenly fell ill and collapsed at his podium. Instead of assisting him, some students allegedly demanded that an autopsy begin immediately. McCallum was known as a strict professor who failed nearly half of his anatomy students. Descriptions of his behavior ranged from eccentric to unbalanced and odd, and with their academic futures at risk, some students reportedly viewed him as an obstacle to their success. The legend claims that as he lay on the floor, students began chanting, "Autopsy, autopsy, autopsy," while some resisted. The situation escalated as others joined in, until a group carried out the act themselves, despite one student insisting that he was still alive. Within an hour, it was said that the professor had been completely dissected, with some students allegedly taking bones and organs home as trophies. However, this account is widely considered unfounded. While it is true that medical students at the time sometimes resorted to grave robbery to obtain cadavers for study, there is no evidence that an autopsy of this kind ever took place on a faculty member. Dr. McCallum instead went on to retire as Professor Emeritus in 1883 and died in 1904, further undermining the legend. And of course, Dr. Mab and myself wanted to take a little look for ourselves. Unfortunately, and this could be attributed to us going in the daytime, the activity was surprisingly calm and not as shocking as one might think, though the basement certainly had a feeling to it. So we are here today at the McGill Arts Building and we are about to do some investigating.
Nous sommes sur le campus de l'Université McGill, ici pour une petite enquête.
So it's a very quiet day here on campus. So we should be able to hear our necrophonic quite easily. We're going to see if we can get in touch with anyone. In this building, we might have cadavers, right? And also an anatomy teacher who has been seen walking around with a bloody apron and a scalpel. Hello? It's a quiet day on campus. I was wondering if you'd like to speak with us. What's that? Speak with you.
You don't?
It sounds like something. It sounds like something a little inappropriate.
I think it's appropriate at your university.
From the cadavers. What? Maybe, I know this is an English campus, but maybe we have some French cadavers here who would like to speak.
Est-ce qu'il y a quelqu'un qui voudrait nous parler?
It sounded French, but I couldn't tell what it was. Would you be able to tell us how many of you are here?
No.
No. Do you know how many of you are here? Does anyone have any idea of how many people are here?
Combien êtes-vous?
Is there one person
30?
here? 30? Are there 30 people here? Maybe. Are there... You said 30, perhaps. Are there 30 people here?
No.
No. Okay. Is there one person here who would like to say hi? What is your name? That's a different voice.
Yeah.
There's at least 5 coming through. Would you like to take turns?
More?
Would the man who's been speaking to us like to introduce himself and tell us his name? You just spoke. Would you be able to tell us your name, please? Yes, you.
Bill?
Gil? Gil?
Bill.
Is your name Bill? Is there a Bill or a William here?
Will?
Were you alive when you came to the school? So then it seems you might have been a professor if you were alive when you came here.
Or were you a student?
Okay, well, maybe we'll try on a different floor and see if anyone would like to follow us and maybe speak a little bit more on another floor. We'll be right back. So we have found a far more interesting and moody space on the 3rd floor, and we're going to see if anyone wants to talk to us up here. You want to try French?
Oui. Est-ce que quelqu'un veut nous parler? À travers ce bidule?
I do. Or I do. Would the gentleman who's trying to talk to us in full sentences let us know what his name is again? Was it Harry? Do others know the man we're speaking about? You seem to know his name.
Bill?
Did William follow us up here? Is there a William who followed us up here? Is there anyone?
Did you just say nerd? Yeah.
You guys have a sense of humor?
Were you students here?
Do you all know each other? My way. Is there anyone here with the last name McGill? Is he here now?
Can you talk to us?
If we were to go outside, would we be able to speak with McGill? Are you sure? All right. Well, we're getting kind of mixed messages with that he might be here, we might be able to speak to him. Go ahead and try. So We are going to go outside and we're going to see.
Yeah.
And thank you for speaking with us. Would you like us to come back sometime? I think they have enough company here. James McGill, are you on campus today? That sounded like always.
Do you want to talk to us?
That sounded like a different voice that said yes. We were talking to some people inside but weren't sure who they were. Are you able to tell us your name? No, that's the same voice. It's because we already know your name? James McGill, are you still there? So brief where we had that really clear voice. It sounded like it could have been. Should we come back sometime, maybe when it's later? Yeah. Maybe we're interrupting their daytime sleep. Is James McGill here at night? Much later, in April 2019, the McCall-McBain Foundation made a private donation of $200 million to McGill University, on the condition that its name be attached to the Arts Building. At the time, it was the largest gift to a university in Canadian history. Needless to say, the building was officially renamed the McCall-McBain Arts Building. Today, the Arts Building remains one of McGill's most important landmarks. More than a century after its construction was completed, it continues to serve as a central part of campus life, filled daily with students moving through its halls, stairways, classrooms, and basement. Yet the building carries with it the weight of everything that came before. The unfinished beginnings, the years of decay and repair, the medical training that once took place within its walls, and the countless stories that have built up over time. Whether or not these stories are true is almost beside the point. They have become part of the building itself. And so the Arts Building stands as it always has, an enduring piece of McGill's history, and one of its most talked about. For some, it's simply an academic space. For others, it's something else entirely. A place where the past never quite stays in the past. And that's it for this month's episode. Are you a Montreal resident or perhaps a tourist who has had something strange happen to you at the McGill Arts Building? If so, we'd love to know. As always, we love hearing your theories about what could be going on. Thank you for stopping by. If it's your first video, we do hope you'll be here for the next one. We post videos from Haunted Montreal in both French and English on the first Saturday or sometimes Monday of every month. If you'd like to learn more about the Haunted Montreal Tourism Agency founded by the talented Donovan King, it's all listed in the description down below, along with links to purchase tickets to in-person haunted storytelling experiences. Remember to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Sarah Beaupre will have another Backstage After Dark video out next week. But until then, stay spooky.